Hello learners, we spoke to you about the sedimentary structures in my first video and showed you all primary sedimentary structure. The second part of it is the secondary sedimentary structures which I will deal in this particular video. To give you an outline what we are going to deal in this particular video, that I will give you a definition of sedimentary structures. Although we have done it in our first video, we will discuss the secondary sedimentary structures, what are the chemical structures and what are the organic structures, and then I will finally summarize it. The disposition of a group of mineral grains in a particular fashion generates observable designs in the sedimentary beds that get preserved in the rock records. These sedimentary structures are observed and studied on the upper surface, or what we call as the top surface, or the lower surface, or the inner surfaces of the sedimentary rock. Sedimentary structures are features that show a variety of interesting and significant geometries that are produced by physical, chemical and biological processes operating on sediments during and after their deposition. They are either organic in origin or inorganic in origin. The secondary structures are formed sometimes after the beds have been formed, therefore it is a post-depositional structure. They are products of chemical, biological activities contemporaneous with the sedimentation. There are two types of secondary structure: chemical structures or organic structures. Chemical structures, they grow around a nucleus. For example, in Kankad, in the riverbed is very common, in the Ganga plain is very common to have Kankad. The Kankads are the small nucleus of calcium carbonate another layer of calcium carbonate get deposited over that and form a Kankad. Similarly, bigger than Kankad are nodules. The chert tend to form nodules. Many carbonates form nodules. Phosphates and manganese, they all form different type of nodules. There are also chemical structures called geode, oolites and pisolites. Now, geode is a very common rock and decorative piece of material which is very commonly found in your drawing room and other things where you make them as a polished surface. And these are formed by precipitation of silica inside a hollow. Similarly, on the left side you can see this is a geode of amethyst. Right side is a quartz, other side is amethyst. There are thinly bedded and cryptocrystalline silica, and therefore they are also called agate. This is agate formation. On the other hand, the pisolite or oolites, they are very commonly formed mostly by aluminum oxide forming along a nucleus like a bauxite material, or laterites, they form pisolites. Then we go to the caves. Caves, what happens in the caves? Caves, you have stalactites, they hang from the roof of the cave. The stalagmites grow from bottom of the cave and connect with the stalactites. Caves are found in plenty in Himalaya, in Nilgiris, in Deccan Plateau and other places. There are many caves in the Nilgiris also. How do they form? They are solution features. There is a carbonate rock get dissolved by chemical activity by reacting with the carbonate rock and creates a hollow, and this hollow keeps increasing over the years and over the years of thousands of years, and these hollows get destroyed so say start falling down from the top, and they produce caves. And within the caves, the carbonate rocks start dripping down from the top of the cave and form a stalactite and a stalagmite. There is also two structures, what we call stalolite and dendrite. I will explain to you that later. What are stalolites? Stalolites are serrated surfaces with a rock mass along which material has been removed by intrastratal solution or dissolution. These lines are marked by clays, iron oxides, manganese oxide, etc., and they are very common in the carbonate rocks. This is a field photograph of a stalolite structure. You can see the form is just like a heart functioning, that what we call it is formed by the pressure solution, that the overlying sediments pressurize the lower surface, and then the material get dissolved and they get distributed along these lines. This is like an earthquake pattern, like when the earthquake is shown like that, this type of zigzag pattern, they look like that. There is a structure which we call dendrite, which many people used to think as a fossil, but they are not fossils. They mimic the human brain function and nerve cells that built on neurons. They occur along fissures formed by percolating mineral solution. They are very common in sandstone and limestone, and because of their non-organic origin, they are called pseudofossils. There is another structure called raindrop imprint. When there is rain falling onto the wet surface on the coastal area or on the river bank, and then immediately get covered by a sediment, then they leave imprints on the surface with a pitted surface like that, called raindrop imprint. There is also another print called hail print. Hail prints are a little deeper because they are big pieces. When we come to the soil structure, these are preserved on the bed's base or the lower side. They include three types of karst. Why they are called karst? Because they are formed on the lower side, and when you study it on the surface, it is the reverse of the original position. Therefore, they are called karst. The flute karst, groove karst, lode karst. An example here for a flute karst. This is in the Himalayas, and you can see there is a movement from the right to left, and the flute karst named after flutes like that. Then there are ripple marks which are called cuspate ripple marks here. This from the Jamuna river bank. There is also a surface called lode karst. Then when the surface of wet sediment is loaded by a certain material at a little faster rate, so it deforms the lower part, and then the material from the lower part gets squeezed and gets into on the sides. So it develops a called lode karst. Similarly, in the flute karst, the underside of the buildings, typical flutes are here. Then we come to the mud cracks. These are also called shrinkage cracks. They develop typically in clay sediments due to prolonged texture to the atmosphere, prolonged exposure to the atmosphere. The cracks are wide on top and narrow towards bottom. Then we see the mud crack. Very commonly you go to any park or any other places or any riverbed, you find this type of crack. They are just a mud, and when the sun starts falling onto them, they start cracking. So, and these cracks get filled up by a secondary material later on, and they get preserved in the rock record. There is an example here of a mud crack preserved in the rock record. You can see that these are the original record, and they are from very old rock, several million years old rocks. Similarly, cineresis cracks also similar type. Cineresis, incomplete cineresis crack. They are not complete mud crack, but half formed. They are called incomplete melanesis. Then we come to organic structures. There are fossil impressions or structures produced by biological activities of organisms as well as petrified remains of animals or plants. They commonly occur in intra-basinal sediments but sometimes also in extra-basinal sediments. Most important one are called ichnofossils. They are also called trace fossils because they are not true fossils but they are the features formed by the organisms. So they produce track and trail. Some organisms moving on the wet sediment, sand on the riverbed or on the coastal area. So they produce different type of structure. Some organisms they started trying to get the food, so they call feeding traces. Some which keep on crawling like a snake, another thing, there are crawling traces. There are some organisms they go and make a dig and just live inside the dwelling traces. And some which are grazing, they wanted to move from one to the other in search of food, they call grazing traces. And they are also called resting traces. So similarly, another group of rocks are called burrow marks. Burrowing by organism like you have snakes making a burrow or mollusks making the burrow. So all those things they get later filled up by the secondary sediment. So the study of these sediments are called iconology, and they are described as iconospecies, not true fossil species, not organic species, but iconophytic species. Send an example here. In trace process in rocks of about 600 million years old, Indian group of rocks. You can see there are different names. They are known as rusophycus or chondrites or cruziana, and you can see the different type of shapes which form. They are formed by different type of organic activity. Then another important rock, another structure which is there very common and is of great use in stratigraphy is called stromatolite. They are also known as algal stromatolites, and they are organo-sedimentary rocks composed of carbonate, silt and clay. They are laminated structures formed by trapping and binding of sediments along the mutualized surface of the cyanobacterial mass. In the modern algal, this is in the South Australia, where you have the algal stromatolite growing today. They are modern. As compared to that, these also shark bay, modern giant stromatolites, you can say. They are formed by cyanobacteria, or what used to be called as algae, blue-green algae. Now blue-green algae is now known as cyanobacteria. So these are formed by cyanobacteria. They form mostly on the sea coast. There is an example here. On the left side is a rock from a Precambrian rock, about 2.5 billion years old rock. Is a fossil stromatolite. On the right side is a modern stromatolite, and see how the similarity. So these are many people have started calling these are also living fossils. Laminate stromatolites are shown by different type of lamination. They are either horizontally laminated or just domical or make cylindrical shape, or they show by different type of bifurcations. Example here, a columnar stromatolite here, which you can see the vertical column. At the bottom is a laminated algal body, and upper top is a columnar structure. These rocks also contain cyanobacteria filaments, very minute, fine grained minerals, and they are very small in nature. They are also get preserved in some of the phosphatic rocks in cyanobacteria. It is a very interesting planar view of a stromatolite column in Petrology carbonate rock. You can see the round surface. These are a group of stromatolite called conophyton, and this is the upper surface. After weathering, it shows only there is a column on the bottom. This goes lower down in the form of a big column. This is a outcrop of the same rock, that conophyton, where you can see the algal stromatolites are laminated bodies. There is another one, pyritized laminated phosphorite. You can see the stromatolitic structure, fine laminated stromatolite, which are marked by pyrite grains. Pyrite grains and chert, pyrite grains and chert, they form a stromatolite like that. There are also bun-shaped cabbage stromatolites over a large area. You can see the whole area around this are big cabbage-like stromatolites and covering the entire river bed. Finally, we come to coral reef. Coral reefs are domed to elongated, massive to bedded forms as a result of organic buildup during carbonate deposition. Then we come to a debris flow. Debris means when the mountain, this river comes in, it brings in lot of material with that, and they started flowing downward. They are very poorly sorted out, randomly oriented grains, and there is no sedimentary structures forms in this. This is an example here. There is a field outcrop of debris flow from somewhere in the Himalayas. Lastly, you come to see there is halite submorph. This also occurs as a halite is a salt. This original salt grain, which forms in a cubic system, they are transformed into crystals like this, a cubical system, and they are called pseudomorph. They mimic the salt grain in the original sediment. Similarly, lastly, there is autoclastic brachia. This is formed by sedimentary processes in the valley, especially in those areas where there is a material is dumped from a higher portion and get deposited and get lithified. So these are called autoclastic brachia. They are not tectonic brachia, but they are autoclastic brachia. Then finally, you have a burrow patterns. The burrows organism I just showed you. There are different type of organisms which burrowing. So they are simple straight tubes, burrow with pelleted water, organized feeding burrows. Then you have branching burrows, then vertical burrows, horizontal burrows. So these burrows are also formed, and these burrows get filled up by secondary material, and they get preserved as a sedimentary structures. Similarly, some organisms are found in the shale. This is a type of organism which you find in Spirogyra type of thing, what you get in the Indian sediments. Peloids and oolites are formed by chemical precipitation of carbonate around small grains. This is called peloid and oolites. There are nodules. There are big nodules. There are small nodules also. These are some of the giant nodules mostly in the phosphatic rock, and they are very common in phosphatic group, especially from the Cambrian rocks in China. Lastly, you have these peri-contemporaneous recumbent folding sandstone. You can see the sediments are getting recumbently folded. This is a peri-contemporaneous deformation. It is not a tectonic fold, but is a peri-contemporaneous deposition. Then you have the carbonates rock, which occur in the form of a clasts. Then finally we have a paleotuff outcrop. Outcrop means organic, those material, the volcanic material, volcanic ash falling over a particular area. In the regional area, you can say they parallelly bed, and this is a outcrop. And then finally you have paleosol. Paleosol means the formation of soil over a bed. That means the particular bed was exposed to environment, exposed to atmosphere for quite some time when the soil was formed, and then it was covered by a sedimentation by the next phase. So it produces a soil feature, and because it is in the rock body entrapped into that, you call paleosol. Summarize it. Depending on the kind of mechanism of formation and relative time of deposition, the structures are classified into primary structures or mechanical structures. Secondary structures can be further divided into chemical and organic. Secondary structures are the product of chemical action or biological activity. Chemical structures such as concretion, stylolites, dendrite and solution structures result due to chemical action. The organic structures like track and trails, burrows, marks, stromatolites, reefs, casts and modes, etc. are formed due to biological activity of organisms. Thank you.